Okay, welcome to Boat Building 101. So I'm going to go over quickly how we build boats. I'm going to start by talking about the material that we're going to use. We're going to provide you with a canvas with about an 8 by 10 canvas tarp. That canvas tarp is going to look like this. It's going to fold it out. So one of the first things you should do is make sure that you got to build a boat that's going to be able to be completely covered by this. We're going to give you two 10-foot PVC pipes, which are just pipes that look like this, but they're 10 feet long. You're going to be cutting those to the appropriate length. You're going to get two of those. And then we're going to give you just a bunch of pipes that are already pre-cut in a variety of lengths. And we're going to make an effort to get every group basically have the same amount of pipes. And there should be more than enough pipes to go around. But one of the things we want to do is make sure that each group has at least their share of moderate length pipes. Following that, we've got a bunch of connectors. And I'm going to show you how to use the connectors in a few seconds. But this would be a T. So three places that I can join. This is a right angle. And you see these connectors are used year after year. So one of the things we'll do when we're all done is take them apart. And then last but not least, this is a 45. It actually is 135, but we call it a 45 because it changes the direction of the pipe by 45 degrees. We're going to give you a roll of duct tape. You'll get a brand new roll, and what I would suggest you do is right off the bat, put your name on it so you know it's yours. You can keep an eye on it. You'll need this in it while you're building the boats. Then we're going to give you a roll of string. You're responsible for this. Again, you might want to put your name on it. And then we're going to give you a clear trash bag to put your stuff in. And we're encouraging you to also just bring in some sort of string bag from home that you can also use to store stuff in. Plastic bag will be good for partially built boats, and that will be good to store your tape. Put your tape, put your string, maybe put anything else that you're using on a daily basis there. Maybe include notes for other people who are in other classes. Finally, we're going to give you a drop cloth. This drop cloth is very, very thin. This is thinner than most trash bags. This is going to form the outer shell of your boat. It offers no strength to the boat, but will keep the water out. We're going to ask you to try to color up your boat enough that you can tell it's yours. And we're going to actually probably try to provide some colored electrical tape so that you can code your boat. Big picture is your boat's got to be small enough that you can get it out of the room. And think about it, you got to be big. It's got to be small enough that you can cover it with that basically 8 by 10 tarp, so that when you build it, the bottom plus the sides going one way have to be no more than 10 feet. And then the bottom plus the sides going the other way have to be no more than about 8 feet. So think about that as you're building your boat. So having talked about that, the next step is to start putting something together. And I would suggest starting by drawing something on the board or drawing something on your paper. I'm going to show you how it goes together just by taking some connectors and putting them together. So maybe we'll start by making the floor. So I'll take the connector, put it on here, take another length of pipe, put it on, another connector, pipe, another right angle connector. I'm going to give you a whole bag of connectors. There's your 22 T's, 1590s, 645s. And then you're going to get one more of these funny cross T's. You get two of those. So I'm going to grab another right angle connector. It goes on there like that. The beauty of these is they stick together pretty well while you're designing your boat. That one's a little bit short, so you want a little bit longer than that. We'll try this one right here. Wonderful. Now at first glance, I've got the basis of a boat. Problem is it's two-dimensional. I need to get some walls on it. That's where the T's come in. There's a couple things I want you to kind of notice when we start using these T's. I now want to take this T and I want to put it in right here. But I need a small piece of pipe to make that work. So what we have is Some of these already have pieces in them because last year kids didn't take them out or they've hammered them in so well, they don't come out. But now I have a way of making a three-dimensional shape. So I add that piece, and now I can go up here like this, and then I'll build the same thing on top. Try to find one that's roughly the right size to go across. I'm going to do the same thing over here in a second. So I need a T with a little piece of pipe in it. That goes in like that. I got that. I've got this. And now I'm going to do the same thing over here. I've got, again, pre-made ones that happen to find in my bag that I'm going to use there. There. This goes in like this. That goes in like that. I'm going to show you in a few seconds how we cut these. So I think this is going to be, that's my upright. I'm going to put a T, and then I've got a right angle with a little piece in here. That's going to go like that. And that goes in like this. I'm going to come over here, put some more uprights in. I need a T. I need another T. Oops. Hopefully that's going to be roughly, oh beautiful, that's the right size there. It goes in like that. Of course, this is a little bit rough. I probably, if you notice, this one's probably a little too long. I could trim that, or I will trim that with my final boat. That goes in like that. Boat's taking shape, it's looking good as long as I'm tiny. But I want to do something a little more exciting on the front. So I got a couple of ideas. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say, look, let's put a 45 so I get like I get more aerodynamic. So I've done that. Now I'm in this, I'm going to take and put, again, I've got this spare piece. I've cut it. I'll show you how to cut in a few seconds. That goes in like that. I'm going to put, that's one of my front pieces. That's one of my front pieces. But now I'm at this stage where these are too long. So what I can do is I'm going to trim them. So I'm going to grab a right angle. I know about where that's going to be. And I'm going to mark. I need to cut about there. And I need to cut about there. Now one of the things is it's clearly easier to make a second cut if I made it too long than it is to hit, Control Z and get my cut back. So what I'm going to do is when I cut this, I'll cut it a little bit oversized. Now we have two different cutters. This one is a nice cutter. It's ratcheted. So as long as you keep an eye on your fingers, you're in pretty good shape. It goes in, can you see that? It goes in right like that. Yeah. And then it ratchets. And then a couple of cuts later, you have a piece. I'm going to do the same thing here. You put it open, put it on. Again, watch your finger. And then ratchet it closed. Okay. Don't throw these away yet, because we're going to use those later on. Bring this in here. And again, not perfect, but not bad. Now I've got, it's looking good. Oh, you know what? I really want to have a piece coming down to here. So again, I'll take this off, and I'll get a T. And now I need to make that little piece to go in. So I'll just take my scrap and cut maybe right there. Perfect. Goes in like this. That goes like that. Now I got to trim this guy to length. And I'm going to guess right there. Again, you want to be careful when you're doing this because you don't have unlimited pipe. So now that goes there. And now I could cut a piece that would fit in here somehow. And I've seen boats where people have done all sorts of different things, including, at this point, just taping this in place. Which brings up the next topic. The boat's in pretty good shape. I might do some trimming to make sure everything's exactly the same height. And now what I'm going to do is use my duct tape, which I've hidden in my bag. And I'm going to use the duct tape to make all the joints relatively secure. Now, one of the things that we find is that you don't need a lot of duct tape to do this. that's probably enough duct tape to make a good solid joint here. Put it on, wrap it around tightly, smooth it with my hand, and that makes a pretty strong joint. I'm going to do that for every single joint. But remember, you have to disassemble your boat. So don't put too much. I've also seen where you use two 45s here, and then that makes that T go better. The caveat is you only get 6 of these 45s. So make sure you balance what you're going to do. So the next step is, I've seen people, you saw the video, some of the groups like to build in some added support. So you might take a piece of string and then tie it on up here. Clove hitch works really well for this. But any sort of friction knot works well. And then send it around a couple times. Whoops. There you go. Send it around a couple of times, and then that adds a little bit of strength that keeps this from falling apart. Don't go overboard with these, because again, you don't need to do that. But once you've done that, you can tie it off. And then you'll need to grab some scissors, and then you can cut that. Again, when you're using the scissors, don't run in the hallway with them, but also make sure that there's different quality of scissors in this classroom. So make sure you grab some scissors that are good, as opposed to some of the ones that are not quite so good. That's a nice one. Imagine I've got this whole boat built, I've got it all taped together. The next step is to cover it. When I cover it, what I'm going to do is, and this is actually what the Native Americans did when they wanted to cover something. They wanted to cover their boats. They didn't use PVC, they would use thin pieces of wood that they were split and then steamed. But they would use pebbles for this. We're just going to cut small little pieces of PVC. My trusty assistant's going to grab that for me. Thank you very much, sir. And then now what I can do, what we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of string. We're going to cut it. And then imagine this is my tarp. We're going to take this little piece of PVC, put it in here, wrap it up, maybe give it a little twist, and then I'm going to wrap my string around it. I'm going to tie it off. And the Native Americans would do this with a rock, and then you'd have some sort of animal skin, deer skin or something like that. Tie that off well, and then now I can begin to start tying this onto the boat. And what I'm going to do, and let me actually do this from this perspective. So I'm going to lay this thing out and make sure that it fits. And in reality, this is going to be a little bit tight. And then at this point, I now have a way to take this, and I can put an awful lot of force on this. I would tear this if this was just taped on to the plastic. But again, come down around here, put that on, come through here, get that. So that's now in one place. I'm going to come to the front of the boat. I make another little ring. So this is why I suggested when you're cutting, you might want to throw some of your little cuttings in your bag so that you have them. Grab a piece of string, and then, okay, so I want to go right to the edge, put it through here. Tie this on again, wrap it around a bunch of times, tie it on again, and then use an overhand knot or any one of the number of knots that you might have learned at one point. If you haven't learned them, now is probably a good time to learn them. And I can take this and I can tie this on to the front. Maybe come down to here, come around here, tie this. And now I've got the sides to do, get each side tied on. And then I've got basically a covered boat. Now remember, I'm doing this with this is clear, lightweight. I didn't want to use the heavy stuff because it's harder to see. But this is how I cover with the heavy tarp. Once it's completely covered with the tarp, what I will do is I will take my very, very thin piece of plastic and I will cover the thing again and I will tape that together.
What do we do if we accidentally puncture the small piece of plastic?
That's a great question. So that's why you have duct tape. You'll take duct tape down with you to the boat float and then you'll just patch whatever you tear. That's a great question. One of the things that you want to be careful about is when you get down there, you don't want to drag your boat. I mean, you're literally going to cover it and then you're going to carry it to the pool deck. You're going to take and leave it on the deck, and when it's time to put it in, you and your group are going to pick up the boat, put it in the water, and then once it's in the water, you guys are going to get in. You might, and you can think about, you probably want to have another piece of pipe going across the bottom. You probably want to have a couple of uprights, but this boat here, as it is shown, if the joints were taped and the plastic was on completely, this would definitely hold one person. One of the things you're going to talk about is buoyancy. Basic buoyancy just says that the volume of your boat has to be greater than the volume of water that your mass is. And one way to think about that is basically your density is about 1. Right? You go in the water and you just barely float. So your density is a little less than the density of water. So when you're figuring out how big your boat has to be, one of the things to think about is, could all 3 people get themselves inside the boat and still be completely inside the boat, like nothing sticking out, because that's your volume, the volume of 3 bodies. And then I think you should have about a 100% reserve. So when all 3 bodies are in the boat, you want to make sure that at least half of the boat is still going to be out of the water. Because if it's not, if it's right up to the gunnels, you're very quickly going to tip, the water is going to come in, and the boat is going to sink. Do you have any other questions?
If our boat does happen to sink, will we be able to recover it?
Yeah, you'll be able to get it. It's not that. It turns out that once the boats sink, once the boats go under, they tend to float back up again. There's actually a lot of air that gets stored in these tubes. And so that the density, so the buoyancy is pretty good. Another thing to think about, I won't have time to talk about this, is you don't want to make a boat that is very narrow, because those are much more tippy. On the other hand, you don't want to make a boat that's so wide that the size of it aren't that big, because you're kind of constrained by the size of that tarp. The size of that 7 by 10 tarp kind of limits how much space you can, how wide the boat can be. You want to make the boat a little longer than it is wide, because I think they go better. But remember, you're going to have 3 bodies and 2 paddlers in it. So you don't want the boat to be so tight that the paddlers can't get, their paddles in the water. Any other questions?
I don't think so.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we'll see. I'll take this apart tomorrow. I want to go home.